Everybody, I'm Brian, and I'm wondering, have you ever wanted to play your game from your console or your PC, but do it from bed? Or out on the couch while you're watching TV with someone else? Or maybe even when you're away from home? Well, it's called game streaming, and yeah, it's around today, and it's pretty awesome. But today, me and you, we're going to talk about what you need for your network and how to optimize your network for game streaming. I think you're going to want to know more, so stick around. So, what is game streaming? Well, that's when the system that's actually running the game isn't the one that you're looking at and controlling it from. And it comes in a few different forms. And I'd break that into cloud game streaming, local game streaming, and what I think of as remote game streaming. So for cloud game streaming, what's that? Well, if you're paying for, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, or PlayStation Plus Premium, or GeForce Now, or once upon a time, Stadia, remember that one? Those are all cloud gaming solutions. And the computer that's running the game is often a data center somewhere while you're at home or whatever. Local game streaming is when you own the computer or console or whatever that's running the game, but you're not sitting at it, right? And that could look like your Xbox running the game while you've got some handheld or your phone that you're playing it from in the back. Or maybe your own gaming system set up. And again, you're playing it from some other kind of thing that we tend to refer to as handhelds. This is an Android device, basically, that you could certainly play plenty of games on locally, but also would be a great way to do any of this remote playing. And then there's this remote gameplay. And that is where, again, you own the system, right? It's your decent computer at the house, but you want to keep playing even when you've left the house, right? You're at work, you're at grandma or your girlfriend's house or whatever, right? And you want to be able to use your phone or handheld or whatever to play your computer that's back home. Okay, the thing is, even though all of those are basically the same experience, right? You're playing on your handheld or phone or whatever, the requirements for what you might need to have for your internet that you're buying from your ISP, and maybe what you're taking care of to optimize that for your home network, it looks really different for those three different options. And to make some sense of that, I think we need to get into drawing. So time for Tiny Brian. Tiny Brian! Okay, and first thing I want to do is let's draw out the cloud gaming one. All right, let's get our little home firewall here. Our little 1980s looking computer. Ooh, I love it, I love it. And how are you gonna connect? Well, it could be with a wire. It could be with Wi-Fi. Let's talk about it, because when we're talking about cloud gaming, the most important thing is your internet speed. Whatever you've got that's acting as your modem, your DSL, whatever that you're connected on, that's going to be the most important thing. And here you're going to be looking at having ideally at least, though this would be on the low end, 25 megabits per second. You're going to have a much better time if you've got at least 50 megabits per second. And that's going to be download speed. The reason that download speed is so important is because, again, that server that you're playing off is out in the internet somewhere. And the majority of the data that you're going to be eating up, basically, is that video streaming to you. The only thing you're really sending back are your button pushes. So speed isn't as crucial for getting those button pushes back as something else we're going to talk about in a second called latency. Oh, but hang on a second. All right, so again, here, when you're doing cloud gaming, you want to have ideally at least 50 megabits per second down. The game server is going to be sending the video to you to show up on your screen. Your button pushes are the only thing you're sending back. And latency is the amount of time it takes for some message to be sent from you the whole way out to there. If you're talking about full path latency, it would be there and back again as well. And the reason that's so important is because you can think about it almost as if you've got like 100-mile cable plugging your controller in or plugging your monitor in, right? It literally takes time for the video signal to make it down to show up on your screen. And for you to be able to press A and have it make it the whole way back, and then you see whatever change based on that button pushed. Okay, and so that's that idea of latency, is how long it is between here and there. That's usually measured in milliseconds. Milliseconds is 3 decimal points back, so 0.001 is 1 millisecond. Usually you're looking at like 10-ish milliseconds is pretty decent time. No more than 50 milliseconds is what you'd be looking for. And usually whatever game streaming service you've got, they'll call out the latency in milliseconds just like that. Okay, now coming back around to it, your PC, how it connects to your home network isn't as important here, because chances are your internet speed and that latency the whole way out to that game server somewhere else is going to be the biggest piece of it. But if you can help it, yes, it is always best if you can hook up a wire to that gaming PC so you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi. But, you know, if you're doing okay, otherwise, right, then like, yeah, okay, sure. Wi-Fi to your PC or handheld or whatever is going to be okay. All right, let's bring in some fresh paint here, and I'm just going to paste to give us a head start. Well, okay, and now we're going to be talking about local streaming. And so the thing that we're playing the game from isn't going to be some server out in the world. Instead, it's your own computer that's our server, the thing that's actually running the game. And so at this point, our internet speed isn't going to matter at all, because we're not even going through the internet. Instead, we've got our phone or handheld or maybe even a little laptop or something that we're going to be connecting on. And they're all inside of our network. So let's draw our little handheld real quick here. And here's the deal. Again, because we're not worrying about the internet at all, it's all local. What we need to do is still have as good of latency as possible. That upload and download speed should be pretty great here. But again, the latency is going to be one of the big problems here. And what it comes down to is that the most common way for folks to do this is also the thing that's going to bite you the most. If you've got both your handheld and your PC you're playing from both connected over Wi-Fi, that's going to mess you up. That's probably going to be your biggest problem. And here's what it comes down to. Even if you've got real good recent Wi-Fi, with other than very few exceptions, very, very like corner case things where you're probably not going to get it, when you've got multiple devices on Wi-Fi, they have to take turns talking. Yeah. Maybe I'll see if I can get a card in here somewhere. You can go check out my my Wi-Fi video I did recently for some more info. Wi-Fi is basically a walkie-talkie where you can either talk or listen, but not both. And that includes whatever is acting as your home router, your access point, whatever. And so when you've got your PC and your handheld both on Wi-Fi, it's going to mess stuff up. If you can help it at all, the best thing you can do here is hook up your gaming PC to a wire. And that way, it is not taking part in the whole radio thing. We don't have to worry about it. Your handheld's still having to compete with, you know, your printer and everything else on there, but they're not streaming all this video. And so at least it's going to be significantly better. If you could get your handheld or laptop or whatever on a wired connection as well, hey, that'd be great. It's just not very practical. Speaking of practical, you can't always plug in your PC. Chances are, if you got on Reddit or Discord or something, and you're saying you're having trouble with your game streaming, your local game streaming, the first thing everyone's going to tell you is just exactly what I just said. Plug in the PC, get it off the Wi-Fi. And if you can't, because it's several rooms away, because you're in an apartment and you can't run a wire between here and there, well, what are you going to do? You can get creative with your Wi-Fi, because what it comes down to is there's not just one Wi-Fi usually. Usually your home router or whatever has at least 2 radios, a 2.4 gig and a 5 gig radio. So what do you do with that with this 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz radios? Well, usually you're going to have your Wi-Fi set up with just one name. And then that one name for your Wi-Fi is actually running on both radios. Then if you've got some gadgets that can only do 2.4 gigahertz, well, they connect to it on 2.4 gigahertz. And some things that can do both, well, they'll probably prefer the 5 gigahertz radio. And that's almost always great. But in this case, what you're going to want to do if you can't plug your PC into your wired network, split those out. Log into your home router or whatever and change it up so that your existing network is, say, 5 gigahertz only. And then make a second network. You can almost certainly make a second one that's 2.4 gigahertz only. Maybe make it the same name, but like 2 at the end of it or something like that, so you know what's up. And then what you're going to do is put your PC on the 5 gigahertz and your handheld on the 2.4 gigahertz. Now, depending on what version of Wi-Fi you're running, this may be a bigger impact or not, kind of depends. You see, Wi-Fi 5 or 802.11ac didn't run on 2.4 gigahertz. It was 5 gig only. Once they hit Wi-Fi 6 or AX, that ran 2.45 and a little bit later, even 6 gigahertz maybe. If you've got a little bit older of a home router that does 802.11ac, it might be that 2.4 gigahertz network isn't very fast. And that's going to be where you try this out, but it might be that the older, slower 802.11n that's on Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz isn't fast enough. Hopefully, though, if you're at least at Wi-Fi 6, you should be okay, because in the 2.4 gigahertz space, you can still get decent speeds out of that 2.4 gigahertz network. It should be plenty for you to be able to upload on the 5 gigahertz network your PC, send out the video, it hits your access point, your home router, and then it's able to send out, you know, without having to wait or anything, back down to you on the 2.4 gigahertz on your Wi-Fi for your handheld. And then you're sending the messages back that, yeah, you pressed A or B or moving the sticks around. Okay. And so this right here of having your 2 different Wi-Fi networks so that both radios can be running at the same time, this is your best workaround for local game streaming if you can't plug a wire into your PC. And now we come to the fun one, to remote game streaming, where we're going to combine both of these interesting challenges, right? We're going to be using our own computer to play the game instead of renting access from someone else. But now, instead of just connecting to it from, you know, bedroom, living room, whatever, now I'm going to be trying to connect from work, from my grandma's house, whatever, right? And so now we got to bring the internet back into it. Okay, here we go, little movie magic. Kind of combined our 2 pictures here. Like we said, now our game server is our own computer back at our house, but our handheld is now connected out somewhere in the world. So let's see if we can get a little fancier. Hang on. All right, one movie magic later, and we've got the drawings updated a little bit here. Let's just walk through it. Right, our game server is our PC back home. It's connected on Wi-Fi or wired. Wired's always better, but, you know, do what you can, whatever works. Then that's connected up to the internet, and then we're somewhere else, right, behind whatever other firewall, and now here's our connection. And so while before we were chiefly worried about our download speed when we were doing our cloud game streaming, now we're going to chiefly be worried about our upload speed back at the house. Yeah, now we're going to want to have that at least 50 megabits per second up. It'd be nice to have faster, but you know what? We do what we can, right? And now, wherever we're at out in the world, right, you know, let's hope grandma's got decent internet. She at least doesn't have to have real fast upload speed, but we're going to need to have that at least 50 megabit per second down. Well, ideally 50 megabit per second down. Do what you can, right? 25 if you're, you know, lowering the resolution or something like that, but yeah. And then latency is still absolutely going to be the thing that can bite us here, because very often commercial or home service like this isn't exactly worried about latency. And so it's possible that you might run into some problems here. Again, it very much depends on what kind of internet connections you're dealing with. Again, if you're trying to shave some off, a wired connection can be real nice back home. You're not going to be getting that your handheld, I'm sure, though. Okay, and so how are you going to do this? Well, this is going to be getting into your software itself, which so far I've skipped over. And I will say that if you're looking for more details on this, for sure, there's a lot of different places you can go to look for walkthroughs, different ways you can do this. The way that I tend to do game streaming is with something called Apollo and Artemis. Apollo is software running on your PC, and Artemis is running on your handheld or phone or whatever else. These are forks that came from original things called Moonlight and Sunshine. Moonlight, Artemis, Apollo, Sunshine. I always appreciate a nerd. Okay, and let's go take a look at these. Okay, what you're gonna do is once you've got these running, you can right click on Apollo from your system tray and tell it that you want to load up its interface. And that's going to take you here. This is basically a web interface hosted by a little internal web server that lets you configure the software. And speaking of which, we're going to head over to Configuration and Network. And here's the magic box to check, this UPnP. And this is going to allow your software to reach out to your home router and negotiate opening up a port. It's not a bad idea to change. This is just for demonstration purposes here. I've left it on default, but it's a pretty good idea to pick a non-default port and then go configure that over in your software on the other side as well. But I'm going to leave that up to you to decide. So this is the first piece of it. And this is real easy, just clicking that button. And this will get you real far, except that when you go to load up Artemis over on your handheld, you've got to tell it the IP address of your computer. Back home, no big deal. Just put in your 192.168. whatever. When you're out in the world, you could have looked up your public IP address out on the WAN side of your firewall before you left, and then configure that IP address in here as your server, and that'll work great. Until your ISP changes out your address. Yeah, and so this is the next thing that you can stumble on. When you're trying to do that remote game streaming from your own computer, it's easy to check UPnP. Not necessarily easy to get that decent internet at your house and grandma's. But the thing that usually folks fall down on is knowing who to connect to, what your IP address is. And the best way around that is to use something like DynDNS or NoIP or some other dynamic DNS service. And so here's what you do for that. This is likely something you're going to pay for. There are definitely some free options, but figure out what works for you. But something like NoIP or DynDNS, go set up an account with them. Then run some software on your home computer or your home router. There's usually an option to do it from there, where you give it the credentials for your account with whatever dynamic DNS service. And what happens then is that home router or computer or whatever logs in and tells that dynamic DNS service your public IP address. And you now have a URL to go to, right? mycomputer549.net or something like that, .dynes, .noip, right? And so now you've got that URL through the service that is always getting a little phone home anytime your public IP changes to update it. And now you put your URL that you set up in here over on Artemis, and now you're over at grandma's. You tell it to connect up to your URL, does the lookup to your IP address, the UPnP takes care of the port forwarding through your home router, and you're connected back home to play your game. Ta-da! And the magic works. All right, everybody. Oh, I am sure I didn't think of something, so do me a favor. Man, drop something down there in the comments if you're having a little bit of trouble with this. If I skipped over something, or if you want me to go into some more details and you want me to do a follow-up video, I want to help you out. Meantime, this continues to be a blast. Thank y'all so much for coming out. Like it if you like it. Subscribe if you want more. And I'll see you next time.
So you did all that work.
Uh-huh.
In order to play that game.
Uh-huh.
On a smaller screen with worse controls?
Shut up!
Okay, how does this work?